Hi there. I'm Dr. Ryan Christ, president of Alzheimer's Buddies, and I just wanted a moment to tell you about this organization you're about to join and share a few tips. I was in the fifth grade when my great aunt Stella first came to live with me and my parents, and I was always the first one home, so I would wobble up the stairs with a tray of water and crackers to her bedside every day after school. We would watch the news, play cards, crack jokes. Stella had Alzheimer's, and as the months passed, eventually the news broadcast became incomprehensible. The cards went away, and her smiles were replaced with glassy stares as if she only half recognized me. My young imagination pictured her as an astronaut, accidentally cast off into space, whose radio messages back and forth to us here on Earth were becoming more scarce. And during the intermediate stages of her Alzheimer's progression, what made this childish space image seem real were her rather terrified glances when she seemed to realize that she was drifting further and further into the dark. So when I was a child, I was afraid, and after her outbursts and those despondent looks, I learned to cut our after school visits short, leaving her to grapple with the confusion by herself. But on better days, I would dare to stay with her, to hold her hand, to tell her about my day, and even to watch TV with her just as in old times. And on some of those days, she would give me a smile. I know she didn't understand all the words that were said and notice each time I held her hand, but if she knew I was there for even a moment, it was a moment in which I felt like a superhero. It's not every day in a kid's life when you get to put on a jetpack and fly out on an emergency mission to reach someone at the edge of the galaxy. When I eventually came to college, I wanted other students to know what it felt like to find that kind of moral solidarity with someone else, to be that type of hero for someone with dementia drifting on the margins of reality. So, in collaboration with the lead at a local nursing facility, Robin Stewart, and many other extremely dedicated volunteers, we founded the first Alzheimer's Buddies chapter at Harvard College back in 2011. In the many years since then, Alz Buddies has grown to roughly 50 chapters across the US, and Robin still serves with me here on the board at Alzheimer's Buddies. My first buddy back in college was named Sophia. She was an 85-year-old Russian physician who immigrated to the US during the Cold War, and she was known for berating other residents, calling Dr. Noble Dr. Know Nothing. She was a piece of work. Visiting wasn't easy at first. She mistrusted men, Americans, American drugs, and even my motivations for wanting to see her. Especially in those early meetings, a bit of energy and a smile went a long way. Still, on some days she would be silent or turn me away, and I respected that. Other times she wouldn't let me get a word in edgewise. I often left those early conversations feeling tired. It takes a lot of emotional energy to start talking with a stranger from another generation, especially one who struggles to follow that conversation. However, unlike those moments when I shied away from my aunt, I hung in there with Sophia and followed the old saying, you gotta meet people where they're at. Our initial conversations had made it clear that throughout her life, Sophia had been an advisor to her patients, to her family, to her pharmacology students. So I began approaching her as my mentor, always asking what advice she had for me that day. In other words, I tried to give her the role she valued so much, a chance for her to give back, and it worked. Over time, it was as if we had made a pact with each other, a pact to be as present as possible for each other each week. And after about a year of these visits, and it really can take that long, Sophia changed on the floor. She began asking staff about their families, giving compliments, and going out of her room to activities. This type of change was not only true in Sophia, but in many of the hundreds of residents All's Buddies has served over the years. My talks with Sophia were less about the actual content and more about the emotions of mutual comfort and acceptance that we conveyed. So even in my conversations outside of the nursing home, I was becoming more sensitive to the other people's moods, to making better eye contact, to becoming more aware of the emotions I was conveying. Alongside giving me communication skills, Sophia touched me personally. I think she learned something of the daily pressures I put on myself, and she began to try to reassure me during every visit that life would work out. In her words, that I would be a good father and a good husband. This was her subtle way of giving back. Visiting Sophia as a student rather than as a family member, like with my Aunt Stella, I was able to meet each week without expectations, without fear. And our volunteers, they don't focus on what's lost. Again, we meet our buddies where they're at in order to help family members reconnect with their loved ones based on what is still present, rather than focusing on who they used to be. We always strongly encourage volunteers to write a letter to their buddy's family at the end of each semester. And keeping a journal of your visits will not only help you write these letters, but also help you to be more thoughtful with each visit with your buddy. Write down the facts you learn about their interests and their past. Reflect on what worked during a given visit and what you might try to do different next time. All of these patients who have been torn away from their memories and from their loved ones deserve a superhero. And we might not wear a flashy jetpack, but with a little courage, you'll be impressed by just how far that smile will go. Thank you for serving with us, and I hope that you will all consider joining and being a part of Alzheimer's Buddies nationally as a large organization sometime in the future. We are a volunteer run organization from the ground up, and I can guarantee you we need your time and talents. So please consider working with us. We really appreciate what you're doing, and thanks again.